Another lovely day that we can drive the Miata. This car is so much fun, but today we're talking about situations you could end up in this car that aren't so fun. I would say that the Miata is the best first sports car that anyone could buy. But there are a couple of things that you need to consider, need to know when driving this car, when buying this car, because it could end up very, very deadly for you. So obviously this is a car from the 80s essentially. The very late 80s this car was being developed. 1990 was the first year that this car was made and produced, and you could buy it. This is a 1990 model. This car was made in 1989. And let's just say safety wasn't the highest concern back then. On top of that, cars have continuously gotten bigger and bigger, and well, this car didn't have a growth spurt. I'm not that tall, my camera's eye level with me, and well, I'm standing right next to my Miata, and you can't even see it. I'm 6 foot tall, and I can fit in this car very easily. If you are a little bit taller, a little bit bigger than I am, you might have a hard time getting into this car, and one of the safety concerns may be that you can't even fit in the car. My car has the foam taken out of the seat, I sit about 2 inches lower, and I still kind of struggle fitting my knees under the steering wheel, and do have a little bit of rubbing issues. I currently have my hardtop on. I have plenty of headroom because, again, my car is lowered by 2 inches. With bucket seats, I should be sitting a little bit lower or just about the same, and well, that's going to be something I'm going to be doing. And I'm also going to be replacing this steering wheel with something a little bit smaller so I can actually have room in the car. But that could be a huge safety concern, because if you don't fit in the car properly, you're not able to drive the car properly. If you're not able to drive it properly in emergency situations, you could end up in some sketchy scenarios, or even just end up crashing while in a car. If you weren't having issues fitting in, you wouldn't have a problem like that because you could control it. But another huge thing about size in a Miata is you cannot be seen on the road. Same thing when you're driving a motorcycle. Motorcycles can't be seen on the road. The Miata has one of those same similar characteristics that if you're driving next to like a Ford F-150 or even the Bronco that I have, you cannot see this car whatsoever. If the top is down and you look out the window of a Bronco, you're not seeing this car. Even in the mirror, if you're slightly in a little bit of a blind spot, a person in a truck could do a shoulder check their mirror, and you might not be able to be seen other than maybe the very top of your windshield pillars. Now that's a huge, huge safety concern if you're driving like an idiot. And unfortunately, a lot of people do drive like idiots, not in Miatas, but just in general. People stay in blind spots, people don't pay attention to the cars around them, and if you're driving a Miata, you need to be paying attention to your surroundings, even more so than driving a normal car, and you need to do the best job you can possibly do to stay out of people's blind spots, because there's a reason why we call them blind spots. You can see normal cars, you can see normal SUVs and trucks if the mirrors are set properly and you do shoulder checks, but a car like this, with a split-second shoulder check, can be easily missed. As long as you don't drive like an idiot, and you pay attention to your surroundings, you're going to be fine. But it's something that you need to keep in mind, because this car is so small, people are going to have a hard time seeing you. Now, the Miata doesn't have a huge reputation of being a super deadly car, but one thing to keep in mind is this is a roadster, it is a convertible, and it doesn't have a rear roll bar. Even with the hardtop, there's minimal to no safety added, and you need to be adding a roll bar. Even if you're doing regular driving, I recommend it. Because if you end up rolling the car, most likely that windshield isn't going to save your life. It being a roadster, you just run that risk, and that's in any convertible. But it's an old roadster, and it comes with old things, which means that you need to start replacing those 30-year-old parts that may not have been replaced at any point in the car's life. Another one of those things is the airbag, because in nearly every single Miata I have driven, that airbag light stays consistently flashing when you turn the car on. That airbag light doesn't necessarily mean that the airbag isn't working. Chances are the 30-year-old airbag in the car isn't going to do too much. If you really want to have an airbag in your car, I recommend replacing it. Airbags have a life I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but chances are this airbag from the 80s isn't going to do the best job in saving your life. I'm actually going to go ahead and delete the airbag out of my car, which isn't the smartest idea, but this also isn't a daily car. I do plan to autocross and track the car a decent amount, and also I want that extra little bit of leg room. Whenever I'm driving the car on back roads for the most part, and not highways, busy streets, and intersections. And on top of that, I honestly don't think this is gonna work. And even if it does work, an airbag needs to go off at the very, very exact time the impact takes place. Otherwise, it can do more harm than good, which is another thing to keep in mind. But additionally, I'm adding more safety features like harnesses and a proper roll bar and bucket seats to ensure my safety if I am going to be deleting the airbag, which all of those things I plan to do. Another thing to keep in mind is this car doesn't have a traction control or ABS, which isn't a big deal, but for a teenager who wants to do dumb things, it could end up in some spicy situations. Now, you could argue the car doesn't have enough power to do that, and I totally understand that, but in situations where it's raining, in situations where it's possibly snowing and icing over, a unexperienced driver could end up getting in a very hairy situation because there is no type of aids helping them out like modern day cars. Modern day aids are like cheat codes while driving, and you don't appreciate them until they're gone. I have no problem driving this car in rain, but I did have some sketchy situations because of the stock Miata tires are very, very skinny, and let's just say my contact patch onto the road wasn't big enough to survive a very spicy hailstorm. And if I wasn't an experienced driver, I would have put that car into the ditch. Now, it's not my only car, but some people it might be their only car, so I highly recommend you update either your wheel and tire situation to accommodate for harsher conditions, or at least your tires, because my tires are very poor, and that's one of the main reasons why my car didn't handle good in the rain whatsoever. There's one more last thing I want to mention, and that is the flip-up lights. Those flip-up lights go out pretty easily. My lights are completely gone and they only work under high beams, and I need to replace them. I also don't drive the car at night, which is why it's not an emergency thing for me. But they do go out, and if they end up going out, you can end up looking like a motorcycle on the road. Not to mention, they're not very bright. I have my brights on at night, but literally no one can tell that I have my brights on. The other thing to keep in mind is the taillights also are not very bright, so people might have a hard time seeing you at night. When you choose to drive older cars, they're like motorcycles. You need to make sure you do your job at mitigating the risk, and also make sure you're driving the proper way to keep your safety in mind, but also have a fun time while doing it. I'm never scared driving my Miata because I know that I can do the things that I need to do to keep myself safe. Driving in rain, driving in whatever conditions, and driving in traffic with a lot of people around me, I know I can do all of those things while keeping myself out of a collision. Miata is a very fun car, and I still recommend it for an early sports car or a first sports car, but there's things that you need to do to keep in mind your safety while driving it, things to add safety features into the car, because I don't want to see any more Miatas down and any people hurt from driving these cars. There's things that need to be considered when you're driving, because it's just you and the car, like where you should be in traffic, and also consider adding some safety features like roll bars. If you guys have found this video informational whatsoever, please do make sure to go down and leave a like, subscribe to the channel while you're there, and I'll see you guys in the next video.